There is a moment, a quiet, invisible moment that most people never talk about. It doesn't happen on a battlefield. It doesn't happen in a hospital. It happens in an ordinary room on an ordinary day when life asks you one more time to keep going. And something inside you whispers, maybe I can't. That whisper, that is where 99% of people break. Not from the pain, not from the failure, not from the hard times. They break from that whisper because the moment you start listening to it, something in you begins to go quiet. Your ambition shrinks, your standards drop, and slowly, without even realizing it, you stop being the person you were supposed to become. You were not born tired, you were trained to quit. Think about that for a second. No child ever gave up on learning to walk because it was too hard. They fell, they got up, they fell again, and they got up again. Not because someone motivated them, not because they had a vision board, but because something inside them refused to accept staying down as a permanent option. That version of you still exists, but something buried it. Here is the psychological truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people do not break because life is too hard. They break because they have been slowly, quietly, taught that their comfort matters more than their calling. Every time the world got hard, they were handed an exit, and they took it, not because they were weak, but because no one ever showed them that the other side of that hard moment was where their real life was waiting. The exit always feels like relief, but it is always a trap. There is a specific kind of pain that only the people who quit know. It is not loud, it is not dramatic. It lives in the quiet moments. At night, when the room is dark and the world is still, and you are left alone with the version of yourself you chose to become. That pain is called regret, and regret does not come from trying and failing. Regret comes from knowing you never fully tried at all. That is the wound that never fully heals. Now here is where it gets psychological. The human mind has a protection system. When things get hard, your brain sends a signal, not a signal of danger, a signal of comfort seeking. Your brain says, stop, rest, retreat, this is too much, and your entire body listens. Your motivation drops. Your focus disappears. You suddenly feel exhausted in a way that sleep never seems to fix. That is not weakness. That is biology. But here is what separates the 1% from everyone else. The 1% feel that exact same signal, and they move anyway. Not because they are superhuman, not because they do not feel fear or doubt or exhaustion, but because somewhere along the way, they made a decision so deep it became part of their identity. They decided that discomfort was not a stop sign. It was a door, and every time life told them to stop, they chose to see it as proof that they were getting close to something real. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the address of everything you want. But the 99%, they never learned that. They learned to interpret struggle as a sign they are on the wrong path. So the moment it gets hard, they turn around. They try something new, something easier, something that does not ask as much from them. And the cycle continues. New start, same exit. New goal, same retreat. Over and over until one day they stop starting altogether. And they call that peace. But it is not peace. It is surrender wearing a mask. Here is the moment I need you to sit with. There is a version of you that exists right now in the future. Not a fantasy version. A real one. The version of you that didn't quit last winter. That didn't walk away from the hard conversation. That didn't shut the laptop when the work got difficult. That version of you is not some distant dream. That version is one decision away. But between you and that person stands the one place where almost everyone breaks. The moment of maximum resistance. Maximum resistance is not the hardest day. It is the day after the hardest day. It is the morning when nothing has changed. When the results still aren't there. When nobody is watching and nobody is clapping and the work still needs to be done. That morning. That specific, silent, unglamorous morning is where identity is either built or destroyed. Because in that moment, you are not performing for anyone. You are not motivated by a speech or a song. It is just you and the choice and the truth of who you actually are. Most people never make it to that morning twice in a row. And this is the psychological trap, because most of us have been conditioned to believe that motivation is what drives action, that you feel inspired first and then you move. But that is completely backwards. Motivation does not create action. Action creates motivation. The people who build unbreakable mental strength do not wait to feel ready. They act first, and the feeling follows every single time. You do not find your strength. You build it by moving without it. Think about the greatest battles you have ever fought in your own life. Not the ones with other people, the ones inside your own mind. The 3 a.m. battles when you questioned everything. The silent breakdowns nobody saw. The days you smiled at the world while something inside you was tearing apart. You survived every single one of those moments. Every single one. And yet somehow, in this moment, part of you still doubts whether you are capable of getting through what is coming next. You have already survived things that were supposed to destroy you. Why are you afraid of what hasn't happened yet? Here is a truth so simple it sounds like nothing, but it will change the way you see yourself if you let it land. Strength is not something you have. It is something you prove to yourself through repetition. Every time you do the hard thing when you didn't want to, you are writing a new story about who you are. Every time you stay when every nerve in your body screamed at you to leave, you are building a version of yourself that cannot be broken by ordinary pressure. Character is not revealed in the big moments. It is built in the invisible ones. The room nobody watches, the effort nobody claps for, the choice nobody knows you made. That is where you are formed. That is where the 1% quietly separate themselves from everyone else. Not on stage, not in some dramatic defining moment. In the small, private, unglamorous decisions that add up over time into something that cannot be taken from you. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a daily vote for the person you want to become. Now I want you to think about something that might be uncomfortable. Most of the ceilings in your life right now are not made of circumstances. They are made of identity. You do not have a productivity problem. You have a self-image problem. Somewhere, you formed a belief about the kind of person you are. And now you unconsciously make decisions that match that belief. You self-sabotage not because you want to fail, but because success feels unfamiliar. And the mind always moves toward what feels familiar, even when familiar is painful. You are not afraid of failing. You are afraid of discovering you could have succeeded all along. That is the deepest break, not the visible one, not the dramatic one. The slow, quiet break that happens when you talk yourself down before you even begin. When you rehearse failure so many times in your mind that you never actually take the stage. When you protect yourself from disappointment so carefully that you accidentally protect yourself from everything worth having. The wall you are hiding behind is the same wall that's blocking your entire life. So here is the shift. And this is not motivation. This is psychology. The moment you decide to stop negotiating with the version of you that is afraid, everything changes. Not because the fear disappears, but because you stop giving it authority. You stop asking it for permission to move forward. You stop waiting for the day you feel ready, because that day is a lie the comfortable version of you invented to protect itself. Readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. You want the life you keep imagining. Then you have to be willing to become someone that life of yours has never met before. Someone who does not fold at the first sign of pressure. Someone who looks at a difficult path and does not ask, is this going to be hard? But instead asks, am I going to be enough? And then proves the answer is yes, not with words, but with action, repeated so many times it becomes identity. The person you are becoming is not waiting for the world to get easier. They are getting stronger than the world needs them to be. This is the place, right here. The place where 99% of people stop reading, stop watching, stop trying, because they have hit the edge of their comfort and they have decided, unconsciously, that comfort is more valuable than transformation. But you are still here, and that is not an accident. Something in you is listening. Something in you is ready, not to be motivated, not to be inspired for an hour and then return to the same patterns, but to make the kind of decision that rewrites your identity at the root level. You are not someone who breaks at the hard moment. You are someone who was forged by it. That is who you are, not who you are trying to become. Who you already are when you stop hiding. The version of you that has survived every worst day, that has gotten up from every floor, that has kept going when there was no logical reason to. That person is not a future goal. That person is already you, waiting for you to stop pretending otherwise. The only thing standing between you and that life is the next 5 seconds. The decision to move, to stay, to keep going one more time in a world that is constantly, quietly, patiently waiting to see if you will break. Don't break, not today, not here, not when you are this close. If this reached something real in you, if something shifted even slightly in the way you see yourself right now, then subscribe. Not for the videos, for the version of you that keeps showing up. There is more here that will challenge you, rebuild you, and remind you of what you were always capable of. The journey does not end. It only deepens, and you belong here.